Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Hollywood. I'm Jazzie Belle, and we're going to be talking about an amazing film called American Skin. And I am joined today with the writer, director, and star Nate Parker and his co-star Milauna Jackson. How are you guys?
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Listen, I'm so happy that you guys are here today. I mean, let's just get right to it. I mean, American Skin is out. The movie's out. The message is out. How do you guys feel?
Milauna?
It's timely. I feel like it's evoked the kind of conversation that is necessary to have publicly. We've had this conversation behind closed doors in school sometimes, in the locker room sometimes, but now is the time to have it publicly through social media. We're using it in a way that is effective globally. There are people that are engaging in our conversation. We have to remember as Americans that a lot of what we do, a lot of how we respond to our government, a lot of how we respond to our authority figures is inspirational to the world. Just like things that happen globally inspire us as in our economy and the way that we design our laws and our policies. So we just have to remember this. And I feel like the film specifically helps to encourage that dialogue so that we continue to be proactive about change.
Nate, how do you feel? Reactions are out. Talk to me.
No, I feel good. I think that, it's very difficult to make a film that deals with this type of uncomfortable subject matter. This isn't a film where you go and you watch it, then you go out for ice cream and don't think about it. This is something that is designed to sit with you for days, if possible. So there's nothing more important than getting this out to the people, and which is why when I look at people like you, journalists in the space that honor these type of stories, honor the contributions of, artists like Milauna and myself, it's so important. Because without the grassroots, without word of mouth, a story like this does not grow to the size that it has grown to. It's a very small film, Milauna, the other cast, Omari, Shane, Theo, Bo, like no one got paid anything near what they deserved. Everyone came to the table because they understood what we were hoping to do, what I believe we achieved, and that is have a conversation that inspires change, and then take that conversation into the streets in a way that is seamless. So when the second you're done watching that film, it is as if you didn't watch a film, that you are engaged in an experience that is ongoing. So the fact that this is ongoing, I'm hearing from, everyone from politicians to, professional athletes to people I went to school with, 20 years ago, saying, I saw your film and it affected me. I feel very good about that. I feel that we are, the best part of this movie hasn't even happened yet. I hope it literally culminates in not only, change, that is this blanket change, but very specific change, like a life being saved because a cop takes a breath, or accountability measures and policy where we don't have to worry about if a person likes us or not, because we know that there are things in place that will prevent him from killing us and our children. So we're on a path here that I think is constructive and I think is healthy. So I feel very good about that. I feel very blessed.
Speaking of the laws and the things that are in place to protect us, one of the things that I love about the film, it was so educational. And I feel like a lot of people didn't know one of the things that you guys focus on. My favorite scene is where you're talking to your son and the friend. And the son is saying, we can't fight back. If it's an unlawful attack, even with the cop, we have the right to fight back. I think a lot of people didn't know that. Can you talk to me about that and dropping that message?
Yeah, I think the important thing to recognize is that our freedom is at stake. And there are very simple things that if we knew, we would be better equipped to destroy the very system that is in place that is designed to decimate our bodies. One being, and the people that on January 6th knew that. They knew. You know what I mean? So I think that
the Capitol, right?
They knew exactly what time it was. You know what I mean? And I'm not encouraging anyone to go out and to be violent. But I will tell you this, the very thing that liberated that young man is the thing that ultimately got him murdered, right? He didn't, it was, and if you're really looking at the film, he didn't learn that until I took him out of school where he was being miseducated, put him into a school where he was being taught the very things that so many entitled kids get to learn that aren't taught in our school very strategically. He learns this around people that don't look like him and brought this to a situation where his life, the fragility of his life was hanging in the balance, and he did not know, and he was right. And what it speaks to is, no matter how right we are, we're still the ones with the target on our back, right? And I would go so far as to say his father was wrong in telling him it doesn't matter, even though he's right because he's protecting us. And this is the circumstance that we're born into, that we have to raise our children, where our right is wrong and our wrong is right, because at the end of the day, our lives can be taken away and just that quickly. You know, so the film is filled with those type of moments of irony, of where do we stand? What does this mean to have American skin? It's like an oxymoron, right? To be American and to be Black. So what does that mean to us? I always say the film has way more questions than it does answers. And I think that that's what art is supposed to do. Art in stars and celebrities and actors and all that. It's not our job to step into the gap and say we have all the answers. There are people on the ground doing the work every day that do that and know those things. It's us to say, hey guys, here's the mirror. I'm just a dude that's gonna put the mirror up and I'm gonna go over there and do my next thing. I'm not a hero, I'm not special, but this is where we are right now. So to get back to your question, just the idea of this piece of information being slid to us in a way that's somewhat covert, but at the same time, I mean, how many people do you think from January 6th have read the Constitution? They're fighting for their rights. They probably never, ever read the document. That in and of itself is entitlement. They're like, whatever it says, it protects me, right? So I think education is a huge part of our liberation. Learning the rules of the game. You know, my uncle always says, we're expecting people to play fair, and we're playing their game.
Yeah, I feel like that's important to remind all of us that any game that we play, if we know anything about games, Taboo being one of them, if any game we play, we know that there are rules. There are rules that are set. When you break the rules is after you learn them, because people have already decided once they write the rules down, once they play it, they can go in whatever direction they want to. I love the fact, Nate, that you actually admitted the fault of the father, because I always felt that when I read the script. You saying to him, do whatever it takes to get home is a part of our imprisonment in our family. And I understand it's hard for me as a mother who has yet to birth a child to understand what a parent must have to go through, hearing or knowing that there's a threat of danger, potentially by the cops. So I understand what you're saying as the father in this film, but I appreciate as a real father and as a man to say that that is the disservice, because we have to understand, we have to say, if these are the laws, my mother raised me on integrity and fighting for what is right and what is true. Okay. And so if that is how I'm living my life, and there's a law in place and we're supposed to abide by these laws, people do not abide by the laws and they're not held accountable, that means that the law is shit. It has no value. It's just words on a paper. And if that is the case, then we got to approach this completely differently. But if we now know the rules, right? And we know that these laws are in place and there's policies that the legislative system has worked very hard in putting these laws in place and representing the people, and you're not representing us the way that we are supposed to be represented, like a human being and having equity in this country. If that is not the case, then you need to get your ass out. That is the power of the vote, and we learn that. We see it. We saw it happen in Georgia. We see it effectively happening every election when we decide to use the law to our benefit and protect ourselves, when those who decide to break the law get away with it.
Well said, you guys. Yes. Listen, I feel you when it comes to the dad, kind of wanted to protect his son. And most parents, they always have to have that talk with their children and says, we just want you to come home. But to Milauna's point, me too, I caught that. It's like, you never know, that spark in him, that need to tell the truth and to enforce the law could, be the next Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or et cetera. So definitely love that story and that whole point. Now, I do want to ask you guys, because Milauna, when we saw your character finally come onto the scene, we saw you outside the courtroom protesting. And it was so eerie to me because it reminded me of what I've seen throughout the years, you know, with Eric Garner's mother, Trayvon Martin's, and et cetera. And, you know, Nina Simone said, you know, I want to get the quote right. An artist's duty is to reflect the times. And I saw that throughout this film. Talk to me about, Milauna, talk to me about how it was preparing for that role and how did you feel, child? Like I said, it was eerie. I was like, oh my God, I've seen this before.
Right. Oh my goodness. Hearing you say that sent chills in my body. We didn't have a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a film, as Nate said, it's an independent film. Independent films don't give you the freedom and the luxury the studio films get, which you have time, develop the character, you have rehearsals, you know, you can spend time with orchestrating, choices. I didn't have that freedom. We did not. And I decided that the conversation I would have with this cop, Nate gave me the liberty and the freedom. We did that take a lot of times, I have to say. I just spoke for every mother that I felt like had some shit to say to a cop, whether he shot her child or not. He represents a system. Police officers, women, represent a system. So I was like, this is the opportunity for whatever I've heard my godmother say, whatever I have heard other mothers say, they would say to an officer, particularly after such injustice occurred, you know, them being found not guilty, which happens the majority of the time. I won't say all. The majority of the time, the homicide is justified. So how do you respond to that in a way that allows you to not lose your mind? Mental health is so important. We have to remember that if we don't get these things out, it will eat us up. And I felt like this was the chance. You know, the first time you actually see my character is in the house on Christmas Day with Link and KJ. And my biggest concern is I don't want to be in the emergency room. Not thinking the next step is I now have to go to the police station. So it was a difficult day. I know that there were things that I could have said and done that maybe weren't showcased. But I will say I did feel when I saw it with my mom sitting next to me in the car, we saw it at a drive-in. We both got it, you know, you get that little thing in your throat. Mm-hmm. You know, that's something that you can't control. It just happens, just like the chill when you asked me that. It's somebody's baby that was lost, and I was speaking as a mother who lost her child.
And you did an amazing job. And Nate, as far as reflecting the times, with some of the people that I mentioned, like Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, what was it for you that really struck a chord with you that had an effect on you where you was like, you know what, I have to really do a film like this?
Well, my nephew, until all of us are free, none of us are free, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't make that up. I don't remember who said that quote. I do remember Nina Simone said just what you said. She says, an artist's job is, she says, just like this, as far as I'm concerned.
Hey.
That is important.
That is.
She was like, don't get it twisted as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
To reflect the times. And I think that makes it even more active.
Yeah.
So for me, the times we're living in a time where no matter how many movies I make, no matter how much success Milauna achieves or you, Jazzie, you achieve, if you have a child, it is a dice roll every time they get out of the bed. I mean, shoot, with Breonna, they may not even have to get out of bed. It is a dice roll breathing. You are born in a casino. And any given day, craps. You can crap out.
Yeah. If
the wrong cop, or the wrong, for that matter, just about anyone, because Trayvon was killed by a community, right? That is, you know, when I got custody of my nephew and realized that I had taken him from out of the frying pan into the fire from a very despondent education system, like nearly all of them are, where we talk about in the film, where our children live and put him in an affluent, he's in one of the best schools.
Yeah.
And it's a different thing to think about. Now he's riding his bike through an affluent neighborhood where no one looks like him. So what happens? And he's taller than me, darker than me, beautiful black brother.
Right.
What am I doing to keep him safe outside of just being mad that it's happening and happy that it hasn't happened to me? So it was that energy that this film got made. And, and as you said, Milauna, people were like, man, it's so timely. It's so timely. And I'm like, yeah, but if the film came out in 1999, would it have been timely? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
89. Oh, yes. 79. Oh, yes. 69. Oh, yes.
Was 1999 in New York.
Let's go. Right? Yeah. So if the next 50 years is like the last 50 years, what's in store for our children?
They're going to change. Yeah.
And go ahead.
Our children's children. You're talking 50 years, that's our children's children.
Right. And are we birthing mothers and fathers to bury their children? No, hell no. Hell no. I don't give a fuck what happens to me. Excuse my language. I do not give a fuck what happens to me. I will have my receipts. I will have my receipts. When I'm on my deathbed and my kids are like, and my kids, and they're all around me, and I'm going out and I'm fading and the Lord's calling, I'm going to have my receipts. I ain't the answer. I ain't get up. But I tell you what, when they asked me, great granddad, what were you doing in the year 2021? When George Floyd, when they had that knee on that man's neck, what were you doing? Where were you at? What was going on? Do you remember? Oh yeah, I remember. You know Milauna, right? That went on to win all the, you know her but I knew her before she won all of the, whatever, before she done. That's what we were doing. Jazzie, that's what we were doing. That is critical. Because if not, what do they say? Silence speaks volumes.
It's complicit.
We contribute to that. And not on my watch. So the film came from a very real place. Milauna is one of the best actresses. Not everyone, everyone's like, the actors were so good. Yeah. I tried to get the best actors I knew. And then take them, not off, it's bad to say off their leash, but you know what I mean. To take them, to release them and say, Milauna, you know what to do. How many times I tell you, just be honest. You know what to do. I don't need to direct you. You are a Black woman in America. Go. I'm just going to turn the camera on and follow you around and we see what we get.
Action.
Talk about support, because before we got on, you were saying like outlets like this and Vibe and et cetera, supporting this type of narrative. What I really loved, and it warmed my heart to see you stand next to the great Spike Lee. Yeah. And I know you both had the privilege of working with him. I know you did a pilot with HBO called The Brick. And of course, Real Hook Summer with you, Nate. How was it getting him part of this project? How did that come into fruition?
Well, Spike has been like a father figure, hero of mine. And I don't say that flip. I say it, we are not afforded the luxury of nepotism in this town. So many of us have to start from scratch. Every career has to start from scratch. You want to be a producer, you have to start. Very rarely are you in a position where someone calls you up just because you're good enough, or not even good enough, just because they want you to be on. And so Spike was one of those people that he'll call me and say, what you working on? What you got in there? What you got brewing? I'll be like, hey man, working on this thing, American Skin. I think, if it can have the impact I think it can have, we're in a good place. He was like, man, bring it to me. I flew it to New York. I screened it for him. It just so happened to be on the day that the murders of Eric Garner were let off. And it was doubly impactful. We watched it. He said, I'll go to the edge of the earth with you with this film. And he went with me to Venice. And then the rest is history. But he is someone that no matter what, no matter where I am, he stands in the gap. And I try to do that for others. I have an organization called the Nate Parker Foundation, and we empower Black artists to tell their stories through the cinematic arts. So I want to be to others what Spike has been to me. And that is like a father figure mentor that encourages, these young people to know that they are next and they are now. and that everything we have will be sowed into them to cultivate them to be, you know, everything that they achieve to be, you know, everything they want to be in our community.
Yes, I love that. Now, I want to end it with this because I know the message isn't to enforce violence, and you mentioned that earlier, but I know a lot of people are going to get sidetracked and think that's the case, because one of the lines I love in the film is when you said whites can act out, as we saw, like you mentioned, with raiding the Capitol. They can act out and use violence, but blacks, you know, we're told to take it on the chin. And not just that, they use the black woman to calm it down, to put them in the forefront. Why do you think that's the case, Nate?
Well, they've been doing, I'm going to let Milauna speak to that, but I'll say this. They've been doing that since the plantation. They recognize our desperation when it comes to black women. We are nothing without black women. They tell us when to go and we go. They tell us when to stand and we stand. All the movements that we celebrate at the heart and core are black women, but it was like that on the plantation. When we talk about Willie Lynch, tar and feather, horse and quarter, and set on fire, they would take the strongest black man and decimate him in front of all of the community to say this what can happen to you. And they would send the black woman to go get flour from the big house. Because if they sent the black man went, who knows what could happen? Black women have been holding down our community. You know, what we don't think about, this is my charger, thank you. What we don't, I'll take this part. What we forget about when I'm gonna put charge on so I don't lose you.
No, that's fine, please.
Sorry.
I don't want to lose you either.
No. What we forget about when we talk about black women in these situations that have lost their children, and then they're put in front of the television to de-escalate the community. What we forget is she's also handling the funeral home, right? Getting money together to make sure that her child can be buried. She's talking to the family members, organizing the wake and I've seen it with my eyes. Right? And in the middle of that, it becomes, let's make sure we can use this moment, use the very thing she has to do for her community, which is create sustainability, and use it against them. But it's just like the dad saying, just do whatever the cop says, but know your rights. It's like, what is she going to say? No. And then other people lose their children in the street because they're militarized. They have tanks in the street shooting and running over people like we just saw in the video just came out yesterday. So Milauna speaks to this so eloquently, but as a black man, I just wanted to acknowledge that this film is where we are right now. That moment is where we are right now. And I'm tired of seeing it. I'm tired of us allowing our black women to be put at an impasse where they have to do so much because for a number of reasons, you know? So, and again, I'm gonna say something else, Milauna. I'm on the soapbox, but I tell you this, make no mistake, I'm not saying with this film, violence is not the answer. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is where we are. I'm not saying it is the answer, but I don't want that put into my mouth. I am not saying anything about what we should and should not do with respect to protecting our children, because I know I will be violent if you try to take my children. That's just me speaking. So I'm not going to speak for any other father or mother that's out there that's desperately holding on to their children. I'm just an artist, you know, because I don't want, you know, when people, well, he's saying violence. If that's your interpretation, maybe you should read more books. Maybe you should talk to more parents. Maybe you should come and join us on this side and see how it's devastating our community and then rethink that comment. I don't know. I'm just an artist. I'm just the guy who's making the art. You know,
I'll say this, and I know time is short, so I'll make it succinct. We have everything that we need. God has given us.
That's right.
We tap into that power. We use both brawn and brain to accomplish all goals, including this one, right. And nothing can stand in the way.
That's right. That's exactly right. And you mentioned it. There is a faith element. You know what I mean? I think that we cannot lean away from that. You know, it is by grace that we are where we are, but it will take everyone, all of our talents to move forward. And like I said, I respect the march, but I also respect the flame, and I understand it.
It's powerful.
Powerful, just like this film, American Skin. Make sure y'all go check it out. It's everywhere, streaming, Amazon Prime. I know that's where I saw it. I love it. Thank you guys so much for definitely being a voice for us. And like I said, reflecting the times. I really appreciate you guys being here. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Jazzie Belle.